Able to see? Cool, cool. So then, okay, so then, yeah, before we get into how we can play around with these labels, you have to play around or to design. There are three important concepts: H stack, V stack, and Z stack. Okay, it is recording. So H stack, V stack, and Z stack. So what is H stack? When you want to arrange some views horizontally, you would say H stack. When you want to arrange views vertically, you would say V stack. When you want to arrange views uh, in an overlay fashion, then you will use a Z stack. Z stack is an overlay, one on top of the other. Okay? That is Z stack. Simple concept. Z stack, Y stack, and sorry, X stack, Y stack, and Z stack. Okay? हाँ. So again, X stack is X axis, Y stack is Y axis. Very similar to what we used to do in our UI kit. Okay? And then Z stack is for overlaying. Now, so for example, now this one, this is one label. Now, if I just say text iOS, it comes in the center. Now, there are multiple ways of handling this, right? Now, let's play around with S stack, V stack, and Z stack. Now, let's say I'll put this whole thing inside. And also one more thing, you need to have uh, view some view component, otherwise you will get an error. So body needs some view component. Okay? So view component can be anything. It can be a text, for example. So I'll say text. Now I'll put a V stack. I'll put this inside a V stack. Okay. So now this is inside my V stack. Nothing changes. Correct. Now, what if I put another one? What happens? What happens? Tell me. If I put another text here, how do you expect this to come? Correct? It will come below iOS. Let's say Android. Okay? If it was a H stack, okay? If it was a Z stack, exactly. Okay? Why why do we use Z stack? We use it for let's say, for example, background image if you want to put. Correct? We will do that. We'll do all of that. So in that case, you don't want it on top or lower, right? You want it in the background, and you want that other UI elements to overlay on top of your background image, right? So those scenarios, you will have to use a Z stack. Okay? Just one second. I think I have to approve. Okay. So, okay, so now so got it? Got these differences, X, Y, and Z? Chalo. Now, let's say Y, V stack. Now, iOS and Android. Now, you asked how do I make it at the top I want. Okay? So then what I will say, and then there is something called spacer. So if I give a spacer at the bottom, so what I'm saying is, now if you see iOS moved up, what happened is, what I'm telling is the whole thing is in a VStack. So there in VStack there is a text and then there is a spacer. So then all of this is inside a VStack iOS, and then whatever is the remaining space, the spacer took. Okay? Again, I can add another thing here. Android. So then we had iOS, then we have a spacer, and we have Android. All of this is configurable. Okay? I do not expect, even I am not very comfortable with SwiftUI at the moment, because there are a lot of variations to do with SwiftUI, and in the documentation all of this is very clearly written. So even as of now, even till date, uh, you have to go back to refer, right? Because there are a lot of properties. For example, just with the image, there are so many things that you can do with an image. It is impossible for someone to recall or remember, right? So then you can always go to a image view and you can see, or for example, this text, you can always go back to this text and you can see what are the things that you can do with this text. Okay? So you can, and you can, or you should always go in the documentation, Apple documentation, go to these structures and read whenever you have time. Okay, this is the best way to uh, familiarize yourself with the Apple documentations. Okay, so then let's say I have this now. Let me remove these two, and now let's see. So we had some weather application that we did, right? Very basic stuff, right? I want you to start with the very basics. We have seen basics of whatever my sorry, XYZ is. Now with this, just with this concept, let's try to see how easy it would be for us to design our weather app. ठीक है? I am choosing weather app because it is simple. It has just one or two or three components, and it will give you a fair knowledge of how the designing works in SwiftUI. ठीक है? So then the first thing was our background image, right? So I'll go to my assets. I'll create a new asset. I'll call it background. I'll go here. I'll set single scale. Yeah, no, it never happens this way. Even when Swift started, it took at least 2 to 3 years before companies moved to Swift. Because even if you see the evolve, how Swift evolved, right? There are a lot of releases. Now the current one, I believe, is Swift 6, if not 5. 5 we work. I'm not sure if 6 also got released. So right from 1 to then 2.1, 2.2, there are so many. So until something is very stable, so there are two things, two aspects. The whatever is newly introduced, right? No company would jump on it. One is it has to be stable. That is first, correct? Second is you need to have a development community over it. Now, for example, UI kit, you will have years of people using it, right? So you'll have years of tutorials, blogs, people asking questions, Stack Overflow, all of that is there. With Swift UI, you if you and I'll tell you something. A lot of people actually, when they started with Swift UI, right, just for a background color or very basic stuff, they used to get stuck because a lot of things were still evolving, and it used to take a lot of time. Like in UI kit, we know. So like this we can do, but then so what happens is a lot of things are taken into consideration when you choose a tech stack in a company. I so now SwiftUI is pretty stable. We 6 months back we started a new project. Okay, we did not use UI kit at all. We do not have storyboards in my current project. No storyboard, no UI kit. We only have SwiftUI. The reason why I chose SwiftUI was because now SwiftUI is pretty stable. We have a good amount of uh, documentation. The SwiftUI is pretty stable, and we felt that it is a good point to start with SwiftUI because SwiftUI is the future. But then chances are that in the project that you will be working on, I don't see that it will be based on SwiftUI. Okay, because again it is so. Also another thing is, if the application is being started now, right, from scratch, then you will think whether to go for SwiftUI or UI kit. But then if the project is already on UI kit, then mostly people continue to use the existing tech stack. You can use SwiftUI and UI kit together in the same application, but then again depends on a lot of design principles, your architects, all of that, whether they would prefer that. So chances are that you would be working on UI kit at least for the next year or so. Hmm. Okay, great question again. So they do not discard, they stop support, they stop updates, and they deprecate. But then they do not confirm that it would work as is, and it is not just with the language, with also with the APIs. For example, URL session data task, the one of the APIs that you use, right? It can deprecate in the next iOS release. Uh, so No, so yeah, it was from Objective C URL session class. Then they also had the same concepts from in Swift, but then not the class, but maybe some of the functions can be deprecated, right? And they'll come up with a new function. So this will continue to evolve, but they will not say that okay, now that we have come up with Swift UI, now we will discard UI kit. Now you no longer can work with UI kit. They cannot do. The reason why they cannot do this is because most companies now are using UI kit. Now, if they do this, then a lot of companies will have to now invest a lot of money to for this migration, and this migration should be by choice, not by force. Correct. So then, what happens is if Apple would do like this, companies would stop using Apple. Even if for iOS application, they will go for Flutter. So no one would do that. Like I have come up with in this new framework and then discard. They will. It takes years to build an application to build these products, and it would take years for you to migrate. Okay. But again, having said that, chances are that you will be working with UIKit at least for the year or so. If you are working on a new project which is starting, if you are very lucky, then definitely there are chances that you would work with SwiftUI. It, absolutely. Yeah, only projects that which I have started maybe very recently, maybe in 1 year or so, may have Swift UI. So yeah, chances are that you'll be working with UI Kit when you join a company because mostly these companies also have enhancements going on, right? So this is why. But again, when you will apply for jobs, not knowing Swift UI is definitely going to be a disadvantage. Okay. Chalo. So then we have this. Let me drag and drop an image. We have added a background. Now we'll go here and then we will have a image. So just like text, we'll have an image and we'll give an image name. Image name, I believe it was background. Yeah. And then I don't want VStack because if VStack I'll do, I don't want this. I want this to be as an overlay. So if you see it moved a bit, right? I don't want this. See, so I don't want this. What I want is I want this as a Z stack. Okay? It refreshed and this is what I wanted. Now again, there are again a lot of things that you can do with these UI components. For my image, I there are a couple of things that we would do. One is I would use resizable. What basically I'm telling is you see now with resizable it is basically fitting the screen. Whatever is my this screen size, it resized and fitted to that. Okay, that was important. Now again, I don't want these white wala top and bottom. Okay, it you can have, but it is just that I don't like it, especially when you have a background image. Okay, top ka anyway it is recommended, but again let's see. As of now, it is not looking good, right? So I will say ignore safe areas. This is basically my safe area. I'll say ignore safe area. So now that is gone. Now this looks better. You know? And now, just one more thing. Again, something. If you remember in auto layouts also, when you and a drag when you used to drag an image, scale to fit, size, all of that you used to do, right? We are basically just doing that programmatically, nothing else. Scale to fill, scale to fit, all of this we had options in our storyboard. Correct? Same thing we are doing. So we are using this. Again, this is something that is scaled to fit and then or we have something else also, no? Scale to fit or we have scale, let's say to no, we have to fill it, right? We have to fill it. This fit is basically it retains the aspect ratio. Okay. Fill is basically it fills the whole view. ठीक है. So now again it all depends on, if you don't use this, then you'll, I think you can see the tree. So this is better, no? Chalo. So again, basically the thing is you have to keep exploring and keep checking, but mostly it will be all whatever you used to do with UI kit, all of that you can do with SwiftUI as well and more. Okay. Now, so this is done. Now, so this was my Z stack. Okay. Now I want my labels. Now and one thing very important, in Z stack you can have S stack. In S stack you can have Z stack. All of this you can have one inside the others. Okay. Exactly, you are absolutely right. Okay. Now this is done. Now what I will do, I'll create a V stack because now I need a couple of labels on top of this image, right? So I'll create a V stack because I need a couple of labels vertically aligned, correct? Okay. And then just like our weather application, I will say, uh, let's design. So I had 23 degrees Celsius at the top, correct? I have as of now it came in the center, which is okay. We are going to design. I don't want this white black. I need this white, so I'll say I background color. I think. Sorry, foreground color. I think. Yeah, and then I can say white. Done. This looks better. And then let's give a font to it. Now font, you there are multiple ways to give font. There are a lot of Apple's what do you say? Some of these defined fonts as well. For example, I can say title, subtitle, heading. Lot of things are there here. If you see last title, title two, headlines, okay, body. I maybe we can try large title. Okay. But you can also give how we used to give. So you can also give font. I think it is system name font, and then I think yeah system name. So basically font and then system. Let's say 48. Okay, by default I think it is 48. Let's say 54, 60. Okay. So again, various ways of doing this. I like the previous way, so I'll just use last title. ठीक है. Then again you can keep playing around. ठीक है. Then I don't want this in the center, of course. I want this somewhere here, correct? For this I'll add a padding. So I'll say padding, and then I need padding from the top. So I'll say dot top, and then how much I need, I'll let's say we can see how it looks like with 100 dot padding top, and then 100, and then this is a okay, one second, and this is E stack. Okay, fine. We'll add other views, other text as well, so that it aligns. Okay. Okay, so now we have this padding, foreground color, and then the font. So now we have added this text. That was my first one. Now we'll add the second one. I want something which is just below this, which I think we used to display our weather description, right? Light rain or something, right? And so then we can give some, let's say light rain. Okay? Again, we'll use this. Again, we'll use this. This time we can say title. Okay? And then now we don't. Huh. So what I'm expecting is from top, I need 100 points. So I'm expecting this to be somewhere here. And light will also move because light is just below this 23 degrees. Okay, so both of this will move. As of now, it will not because it doesn't know how to fill the space. If you add a spacer, I'm expecting it to move, just like we did earlier. Okay, we'll see. So then we have light rain. I'm sorry. Let's add a spacer, and now I expect this to see. Okay, so now it moved. But then if I will not give this padding, then it will just go at the top. I don't want this. I need some padding. Okay, if you will not give any of this, no, then it will take the default padding. So I need some padding from the top. Okay, done. Now I have designed this. Anyway, you can play around and make it look a little better. And I have added a spacer also. And then make sure that you write comments, proper comments, because what happens is gradually your view files increases in size and then it becomes difficult to debug. That is one. Second is, if I have to design this right, maybe these two I'll create one separate view. I mean, if I have to do a lot of customizations, right, I can make one view just with these two. Okay, so those things also you can do just to modularize your code. Okay, and then now we have, and then I believe we had something in the bottom for location, right? So then let's add another text, Bangalore, and then again we can add foreground color as white, and then font we can let it be Bangalore. I think we can uh, this font also light rain. I think maybe we can use something. Yeah, I think heading or body we can use because okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, this may be a little better. Okay, again you can play around. So then you have this Bangalore here. Done. All of this is done. Now, if you oh, we had anything else we had in the weather app? We had weather, temperature. Okay, so then you can keep adding. Either you can keep adding here, or let's say that image. No, I need it just before the slide train here. How will you do? Let's say I need one image just before the slide train thing. How will you do? Okay, here, here if you add an image, then the image will come between these two. No, I want, yeah, before light rain here. Hmm. How will you do? Very good, very good. We'll use edge tag and then correct. Exactly. It is exactly. So you will use, I'll just say, you'll use an edge tag, okay? And then whatever. You can use an edge tag, and then inside that edge tag, you will have an image and you'll have a text. And that edge tag will be inside this V stack, correct? Got it? Easy, right? Pretty easy. Easy stuff. Cool. So then now we have this. So maybe you can add that weather ka icon here somewhere. Okay? Now this is done. Now let's go with some of the other UI Swift UI concepts. Okay? So Swift UI, fine. I mean, you can play around and you can see and you can design some other screens also which we have implemented. Table view and all, leave it for now. I'll cover table views because everything has changed. You no longer have to use delegate data source and all of that. Swift UI changes everything. Okay? So because your table view is also a UI component, right? So it is UI table view. So then all of that has changed. How you implement has also changed. So just try to play around with this UI, okay? With this label syntax as part of your homework. Now this part is done. I have my view. Now what I can do is so maybe I can now close my canvas. I'm done with my UI design. I'm closing my canvas, and then let's can we implement a API? Okay. I'll implement one basic API that we used earlier for our to do. You can implement your weather API in the same way. Make sense? Okay. So then a couple of files we will add. let's say network manager, everything will change. Even the network manager will change. Okay? I will add a data manager. We'll add to do model. This becomes our model. Okay? And we need one more. What is it? Exactly, view model. Again, to do view model, you can name it. Okay? Done. Now let's start with network manager. Now, what our earlier network manager did? What is the use of network manager? Okay, so any calling party, be it my data manager or my view model, can give a request to download. Correct. They can pass a URL and they can ask my network manager to download. Correct. Now, we earlier what we did is we created a static or an instance variable URL. We added that as an initializer. So whenever you create a network manager, you pass that, and then you. That was one way. Another way is to accept URL as part of the function itself. Okay. We have done that. Now we'll try some other way. So we'll say func. Okay. Now, sorry, network manager, and then we'll say func download data or fetch data, your fetch data. Okay, and then here I would say URL. Okay, and then there is something which is very okay, and then it would return. It used to have a completion handler, right? If you remember, completion handlers we used, right? We are no longer going to use completion handlers in SwiftUI. We have something called and this is not part of SwiftUI, but combined and all of this the entire concept. Okay, so then we use async await. Okay, instead of completion handlers, and with async await we can just return. So now instead of completion handlers we can just return the data. Now, a completion handlers again was easy to use, I would say. But again, it if you have multiple of these completion handlers, right, it becomes very difficult to call. So chain. So for example, chain of APIs. If I have to call, I have to call first API to get the category list, then the subcategory list, and then the product. If I have these three API calls back to back and all dependent on each other, then completion handler code becomes very messy and becomes very easy, difficult to understand and debug. Okay, now we are going to use something like direct return. You return the data, but we will use this with async await. So before this, we'll say async. Okay, await is something which I will explain when we will call this part. Okay, what is async? Correct, correct. Asynchronous. So whatever is happening inside this function is asynchronous. That's all. Okay, asynchronous means it is not going to block the main thread. It will happen in parallel. Okay, asynchronously. And then because it is something that can throw, if we have used try catch block, right? Whenever you use a try catch, you should use it throws here. Okay, same for your try catch. Now we'll say if you remember our we use something called URL session ka data, and then we used to create a URL instance and then a URL request instance, and then uh, we used to implement data URL session dot share dot data, and then that would return us data response and error. Correct? है ना? So we'll try to use the same thing. So let there, and then that was a completion handler version. Now this is a return version. Okay? So response equal to try await. I'm using await because I'm calling a asynchronous function. URL session ka data is also an asynchronous function. Okay? I'll show you. So URL session dot shared dot. Now if you see, I have multiple variations here for data. Correct? In our earlier one, no, we use something called if you see completion handler, data task see with completion. So we use, so this completion handler wala we already have. If you see data task with completion handler. This is what we used earlier. See, and see data response in error. Correct. This is what we used earlier, right? We will not use that. We will use another variant of my this data task, which has async throws. Okay. So we'll use this. Now again, there are multiple variations. Again, you can directly pass a URL or you can create a URL object instance, just like we did earlier. Okay? And I'll pass a URL. Okay? Whatever is my data, it would just return. Now response you can try returning, you can checking the response codes, whatever you have done. As of now, just for simplicity, I'll just not have any of that. If you don't use a variable, you can just use an underscore. Okay? To ignore. Now that's it. One line of code done. My network manager is completed and return. Whatever you pass the URL, this function pass the gets the URL, returns the data. That's all. One line of code. And I don't even need completion handlers here. I can just directly return the data. Okay. Now, if you used this earlier, so without using completion handlers, if you use a return type in your current app without async await and any of this, what would happen? Yeah. So take your current app, whatever you are working on now. Okay. You implemented async completion handlers for in your network manager. What if you change the completion handler there and return data? What would happen? Hmm. What if you instead of completion you would say return? In your current implementation, what would happen? So then you could have asked, right? Ki why are we complicating things? Why are we using completion? Why are we not directly returning things just like a normal function? So if I ask you to create a simple function which adds two numbers, are you going to use completion handler or are you just going to return it? So why you did not return it in the network manager? Why did you use completion handlers? Why? Why? Why not return? Just like you would do any function of adding two numbers. So the reason is when you add two numbers, right? There is no asynchronous code that is running. But when you call in your network manager, when you call URL session.shared.data or URL session ka instance you create and then you call data, that this is an asynchronous function. This is implemented asynchronously. So what would happen is if you directly return, no, this line of code will get executed and then it will go to the background thread, correct? And then your next line of code will get executed. So return will get executed and return will not have any data because this went to the background thread and without completing this execution, this line of code got executed. So you will always get nil if you do that. Does it make sense? Okay. So the reason why we use completion handlers is because we want to get notified once it completes. Once your asynchronous code completes, we want to get notified, and then we can pass that whatever is returned as a completion. Okay, as a closure. So then, uh, but so that did not work earlier with completion. The same way we can do just with a return type, but this time we are using await. So what happens is whenever there is an asynchronous function, right? Let me go here. If you see, it is an async. Just like our async throws, this is also an async throws, correct? So this is an async function. Whenever you call an async function, you have to use await. And what await does, it tells that this line of code to wait for execution, and then once this executes, then the second line will get executed, but this will happen asynchronously without blocking the main thread. That is the difference. Okay, so what I'm saying is this is my asynchronous function, and then wait until this is completed, and then once this is done, you return. But then don't wait and block the main thread. Do it asynchronously, but once done, return it. Make sense? Easy? Yeah, no? Cool. So now, simple stuff. This my network manager is done. Easy. Now I'll go to my data manager. Hmm. If you don't get the data, then you will get a response or an error. So you'll handle that. Okay, but yeah, but what you are saying, correct. But what you are saying is right. If this has gone to another background thread, right? If you don't handle any of that, then it will run in the background. If you don't return or if it gets stuck, but it will not block the main thread. That is the important part here. Okay. Chalo. So now async await is again extremely important. Async is just you just add async whenever there is an async code which will happen asynchronously. In this case, all of this happens asynchronously. And then whenever you call an async function, you have to call await. So whenever I'll call fetch data, no, I'll have to use await. And because it is throws, I have to use try. Okay. So throws and try and async await. All of that goes together. Okay. Chalo. It can throw. Yeah, it can throw. So if you go to data, there is a possibility. So if you see there is throws here. Basically, in your code, there are a lot of, this is an API call, a lot of things can go wrong, correct? This is why you have a try catch block, because it can throw an error which you have to catch it and handle it properly. ठीक है? We will do error handling also. Maybe I'll explain error handling, elegant ways of doing error handling in the projects. But basically, what it means is it whatever is my, this is an API call. No? It may throw. If it was 2 plus 2 equal to 4, a function that adds two numbers, I would not use throws because there is no reason for this function to fail. But this is an API call. There are many things can that go wrong, right? And it can throw. So this is why I'm having throw, and this is where I'm using a try. Okay, easy. Now I'll go to my data manager, which calls my network manager, right? So data manager, sorry. And then I will create an instance of my network manager, correct? Private let manager or network manager. Then and then I'll create a function. Fetch to dos, for example. You can implement a fetch weather. Okay? Again, this is an API call. So then it can. This is an async. This is an API call. So this will be asynchronously executed, and then it can throw because this is an API call. Okay? What this would return? Models, array of models, right? So then before that, I think we should create a model. So our we can go to our to do ka ye. To, can you see the browser? Okay. So then we'll I think this is something that we already done. So then we have int string and bool, correct? So then we can go back to our function. Yeah. And then we can create a struct to do model, and then codable, correct? And then we'll say do you what idea, what user id title, and let's copy user id, yeah, id, and then you have So best is you always copy paste. Okay, so that there is no spelling mistakes. Fine. Chalo. So now I have my to do model ready. Data manager. I'll go here, and what this would return? Exactly, array of models, है ना? To the model. Very good, Savik. Chalo. So then this is also done. Then now you have cardlet URL is equals to. If you remember, this is something that we did in our network manager. We are doing it here. We are creating a URL object, URL request URL from a string. So either you can create, you can keep it string somewhere at the top, or we can directly as of now keep it. But then, as if you remember, I asked you to try xcconfig to store these URLs and session key. So you will say URL from URL string, and then here comes your our API. Okay, I'm using guardlet. I'll say else, and then I can either say return or I can say throw. So throw URL error dot bad URL. So now this is basically what I'm saying as throw. There can be many things that can go wrong when you are making an API call. Maybe I can do this. API will fail if I don't have com. Then the URL itself is not correct, right? Invalid URL, correct? So all of that you should handle. So this is basically where I'm throwing, and then the calling part would handle these throws. Okay? So you can add the return, you can throw your wish. There are multiple. So again, error handling is something that I'll take separately, where I'll maybe errors in general, error handling. How do we do using enums, and then try catch throws errors, and then generic API errors. That's for example bad URL. Okay, those things. Yes, yes. We can go here. So URL error dot code. URL error extract dot code. You go up. Okay. Okay. So they have added this as a variable on URL error dot code. Okay. We will be implementing as an enum for our custom things. What they have done is they have added these as variables. Okay, on URL error dot code. Again, different ways of implementing it. For custom error codes, we always use enum because we know that there are set of possible cases. Okay, then this is done. Even in fact, I was expecting this to be an enum. Okay, chalo. So then this is done. Now it says that I'm missing return type. I will return let data is equals to. Again, I would say my network manager dot I have this fetch to data now, and then I'll pass my URL. Okay. Now it says call can throw, but it is not marked with try. How do I fix it? Very good, very good. I have to add try. Okay. It says expression is async, but is not marked with await. What do I do? Exactly. I'll add await after. Easy, no? And Apple actually tells prompts, and it is so cool. If and then this becomes very easy to understand also, and on why I am doing. Okay, why am I using try? Why am I using await? Okay, I'm using try because this can throw. I'm using await because this is an async function. Correct? Chalo, very good. And then let's decode. So I'll say let's decode the data, or let's say let's to do's whatever to do's equal to, and then I'll say try JSON decoder dot decode our same implementation. I don't think anything changes. I think this is exactly how we've done. No changes here. Solve, and then from data. And then what I can do here, I don't need completion handlers. I can just return to do's. No need of completion handlers. We are getting away with completion handlers now with async await. So async await replaces completion handlers. You can still use completion handlers with SwiftUI, but when you are using async await, you no longer have to do it. Makes Absolutely, you can do the exact same thing here also. So in network API, network calls, so SwiftUI is only for the UI. Okay? You can use all of whatever you have done and just change the UI. That is possible. But then async await is a new concept in Swift which we are implementing. Okay? Chalo. Then that is also done. Now we have to do this is done, this is done, this is done. Now comes our view model. This is something which is extremely important. Okay? Now here SwiftUI, there are a couple of properties that we'll be using for SwiftUI because the view model and view works hand in hand, right? So the view model should not use any should use ways which SwiftUI supports, correct? Now, SwiftUI ka one of the key features is that your view model and view will always be in sync. So whenever there is some change in the data, whenever there is some change in the data in the view model, it should always reflect immediately in the view. That is the primary concept of SwiftUI. That your view model and view should always be in sync. Whenever there is an update in this view model, your view should automatically update. Correct? Make sense? है ना? So that you'll always have actual data flowing. Okay? Now how do I do it? So here, because my view model and view needs to be in sync, and we will be using a couple of Swift UI related stuff, we will import Swift UI as well in our view model. Okay? Now I will what is my okay view model, and now this is how we did earlier, right? Now what we will do, view model ka we are going to add something called observable object. As you can see, there are a couple of things. We will cover one by one these, and it is best that we will learn these while implementing instead of me telling all of these one by one. It doesn't make sense, right? It won't help to understand. So, observable object is something that we'll use right now. What observable object tells is this view model is observable. Means that anyone can observe this view model. Any view can observe changes to my view model. This is the meaning of observable object. I am telling that my view model conforms to observable object, which means that any view can observe changes to my view model. Does it make sense? Easy. What it means? Exactly. So any change in my view model would reflect in my view, because my view model and view needs to be in sync. ठीक है? So my view model is observable object. So I when we will implement view no with this view model, then you will understand better. ठीक है? Now at this moment, understand that view model is conforms to observable object, which means that changes in the view model can be observed by views. ठीक है? Views can listen to changes in other terms. ठीक है? Then what changes the view model? See, view model will do a lot of changes, right? And we'll do a lot of publishing. So do you are you familiar with concept called pub sub? Okay, so pub sub is basically you subscribe and then you publish. So there are two parts of this chain. One is the publisher and one is the subscriber. So for example, there is a live match going on. Maybe somewhere on the ground someone is publishing the score, and all of these OTTs have subscribed to it to get the values. Okay, so this is a pub sub. There is a database. We can write a subscriber so that any changes in that database we can whenever a data is published, all the subscribers would get notified. Okay, so this is the concept of pub sub. Very on top on these lines, we have these all of this implemented. So view model and view. We have two things. Who is the publisher and who is the subscriber? Okay. Who is publishing? Very good. Very good. Just one second now. So who is the subscriber? The view. Who is the publisher? The view model. Whatever the view model publishes, view reads to it. Okay? View gets notified. Okay? View model can do a lot of things. I don't want, I mean, I want some specific things to be published, right? Like for the earlier case, the score. Correct? You know? So in this case, let's now create a variable which I would like to be, which the view model would like to publish. All of this is extremely important. Listen very carefully. So now let's create a variable. Let's create to dos. This is my array of to dos. Okay? And this is something that the view model wants to publish. Correct? Because view model would be using this to dos to update the view. Correct? So I will say at the rate published. Okay? Which means that view model is going to publish this to dos. Okay? Easy. We can add one more published. With there can also be an error. Correct? So we can give some error message as well. You can publish as many as items that you want. Okay? Make sense? All easy, easy stuff. Yes, view will actually listen to the changes in the view model and will can only listen to the changes in to dos and view model, because I can have other variables also. The view will not get notified on those changes. So I can create one more variable also, no? Let's say anything, status for example. So view will be only notified for the items which are marked as published. Okay, make sense? Chalo. We have this, and then again, just like we created an instance for the network manager, we can create an instance of for our data manager, and then we'll write a function, fetch to dos or get data, whatever, or let's say get to dos. Okay. Now, get to do is something that is going to call a asynchronous function. Correct. View is asynchronous or synchronous. Whatever is happening on the view, user tapping on buttons and all, that is asynchronous or synchronous. Very good. That is synchronous. So that is all happening on the main thread, correct? You cannot call an async function from a synchronous context. So from the main thread, you cannot directly call a asynchronous function. If you have to do that, you have to add something called task. Okay? If you will not use task, then you will get a prompt. Actually, I should have done the other way. I should have let the prompt come just like I did last time. So what happens is it will give you an error saying that asynchronous code is called from a synchronous context, which means that if everything was already in a sync, then you don't have to. But then because you are calling this from the main thread, you should use a task here. Okay? Chalo. So then we'll do again our do catch word. I think very similar to what we did earlier. Now we will say data manager dot fetch tools. Again, we have got the same errors, throw and thing. So what we should do, we should use try and await. Make sense? Because fetch to do is async throws. So we are using try await. Okay? And then whenever you publish something, okay, let's do self dot to dos is equals to data. Okay? Whenever, as a bottom line, I'm telling you, these issues happens in real time in actual projects also. Whenever you set data to any of the published variables, always do it on the main thread. Okay? So to do's is published. You should not do this. You should say, because this line of code is happening asynchronously, correct? But published means you cannot use this. You cannot set any variable which is in published asynchronously. You'll have to come in the background. You'll have to do that in the background thread. So I'll say dispatch q dot main dot async. This is what you should do. Otherwise, you'll get a purple kind of a big, है ना? So you will get key. You should not be publishing in the asynchronously. Okay? You will be getting error saying that you make sure that you publish on the main thread, or something like publish is only allowed on the main thread, something like that. Okay? So now this is done, and then we have something called catch also, which is optional. Let's handle it. So in catch, we'll again do the same stuff, and in this case, I'll say error. Some error happened, could not load data. Okay? So in this case, done. Our view model is done. Now the last part is our view. Now again, change some of this or implement this in. I will not change much of these changes, but again, chalo. My body Z stack. Now, what? When do you call this API call in UI kit? Very good. What is view did load? Correct. Whenever your screen loads for the first time, your view did load gets called, and then that is where you would call your view model ka fetch data. Correct. We don't have view did load view will appear those stuff. We have, but we have those concepts. So on this Z stack, no, I have something called on appear perform, which is very similar to our view did load. Whenever this appears, do something. Okay? This is where I will call. Acha, so before this, I need to call a. I before this I need to create a view model ka instance, है ना? So I'll create private var view model equal to view model. Now view model is an observable object, correct? We have marked view model as observable object, right? Whenever you create an instance of the observable object, right, you always create that as a state object. So observable object is what it is conforming to. So whenever you create a instance of something which is an observable object, whenever you create an instance, you always create using state object. So there are two basically, at the rate state and at the rate state object. At the rate state is used for your primitive data types, and at the rate state object is used for reference types. Because this is a class, I am using at the rate state object. Okay, what this does is this tells me that this view is dependent on the state changes of my view model. Whenever my view model changes, the view should update. Okay. So always create a state object. Now all of this, no. Okay, now here I'll say view model dot what is get to do's. Okay, and that's all. Just get to do. This is very similar to my view did load ka abo. Okay, and then I'll just change one thing, but then later you change the whole UI and try to bring it in sync. So my what do you say? View model dot to do's. It is an array, so I can just use first dot title. ठीक है, just this is just for testing. Huh? Uh, very good, very good. I'm giving just a default value, and this is only for testing. You change the whole thing. We'll just try to see if I'm able to get the title. Okay, let's run. Ah, running out on my iPad. Let's run it on 50. Done. The first one is this title. Okay. Easy. Now if you go back and compare your code from your current weather app and this, I do, there are very few similarities. I think your data manager is only similar. Everything else we have changed. है ना? So now this is another way of doing this. I will suggest you to experiment. ठीक है? Try some UI designs. Maybe you can just start off with a login screen. ठीक है? What you can do is images.google.com login screen iOS app. And then take any of these, okay, and then try to design this using SwiftUI, okay, and so that is first, and then or see even this looks good. Your wish. Just take any thing of your choice. Just design it. But then when you design, no, keep this as your reference and try to make your view look exactly like this, because you will be getting these kind of designs from UX team, and your design should match exactly pixel by pixel to this. Okay, chalo. So then that is something that you would do. I will be sending you this code so that you will analyze and then complete this with your weather app. Okay, chalo. And then if there are any questions of it, let me know. If you want, I can cover the whole thing again. If you want a revision session, I'll take the whole session just to repeat whatever we have covered, because I want you to understand async await Swift AI, how all of this works well together. All of that very like you have to have a very strong understanding of these. So you try these. If you still think that no, you do not understand, just let me know. I'll take the whole session once again. ठीक है चलो. Okay.